Okay? Bonjour mon ami? No. That's about it really. Jesus, I think it's Jesus. But anyway, so we've talked about 30 years of evangelism in this country. We talked about 2 tribes in the 80s and a tribe that was committed to preaching the gospel. Mission England.m4v was a brilliant time for lots of us with the Billy Graham Association, but also a more compassion and social-led gospel emerged through liberation theology, but people like London City Mission, Salvation Army have been doing this stuff for years. Brueggemann's book, Perspectives on Evangelism, started to teach us that word and deed was meant to belong together in our outreach. Decade of evangelism in the 90s, Church of England decided to get on the front foot to actually bring some of those tribes together. And during that was the birth of Alpha, which exploded in the 90s and then went global in the noughties. And also the whole Church for the Unchurched network and movement, I guess from Willow Creek. And sadly though, at that time of us understanding evangelism better, the church went into decline through the 80s. And you know, people were predicting the death of the church in our lifetime. Unlucky, it ain't going to happen. And so the noughties, the 2000s kicked off with Message 2000, where we gathered 10,000 young people from the UK and we did word and deed side by side. And there's now a whole generation of young missioners in England that don't even understand there was ever a separation between the two. This is what we do. And during that time, so in the City in London and others. And so today, some of the key themes for us, unity and diversity. Local ministers that meet together, pan-denomination, that's kind of falling away, the importance of denomination here. And increasingly, you know, bands of brothers that stand together, brothers and sisters, of course, who are committed to prayer and unity and mission for their local area and beyond. Also, the whole idea of relationship and journey, perhaps the death of the door-knocking or street preacher, and much more about relation, evangelism, and an understanding that people get there in a different pace with a different journey. We talked about the power of story and that reality overcomes relativity. People can't argue with my story, particularly where it's current. You know, people don't want to know, is it true? They want to know, does it work? I should have said that earlier. That's what people in England want to know. Does it work? Not is it true. Nobody's asking is it true. They're asking, does it work? And therefore story, not apologetics, is the answer to that. We talked about pluralism, but actually the answer for us is about real respect. Not tolerance, real respect. And the need to listen. 2 ears, 1 mouth. And so we talked about a preferred posture, not programme, for evangelism in 2012. And the posture we want people to adopt is appropriate places. So we talked about traffic light evangelism, that some stuff we do is going to be red zones. We are just serving, perhaps particularly in Olympic spaces. We are not going to take and steal a moment to preach. That would be wrong on every level. And then there's green spaces, green zones, which might be the church's space. It's been advertised for what it is, and we will freely tell our story and the story of Jesus. And there's orange spaces, amber spaces, bits in the middle, shared community space, where again, sharing our story appropriately and personally is very valid. We talked about partnerships with local churches. The truth is, the local church knows best how to reach its local people, but you are allowed to be a critical friend. Come and serve with the right attitude and become a long-term critical friend. We talked about acts of service, hospitality and outreach that will turn the ground over in 2012 for all that we think God's going to do long term. Amen.